Today, I want to show you and explain all the basic features of N8N Automation Platform. This service allows you to build workflows for your automations or AI agents, even if you don't have any technical background. But, of course, if you know programming basics, for example, you'll have more possibilities, and the concepts mentioned in this tutorial will be more familiar to you. Here you have 14 days of free trial. After creating an account, you'll be able to access your workspace. Okay, first of all, I want to enable Dark Theme. This can be done in Personalization section of the Settings tab. You can create your first workflow here or here. You'll get into Editor with blank canvas. You can zoom in and zoom out, move elements on the canvas, etc. Every workflow consists of nodes connected to each other. Workflow should start with Trigger node, which should make all the other nodes work. You can click on this plus button in the center of the canvas, and all the new nodes can be added with this button in the right upper corner. There are different types of trigger nodes. I'll select the simplest one, Manual, or Example. You should click on it to activate workflow. You can drag and drop it where you want. Click on this bucket button to delete node. Let's see other types of trigger nodes. Next one is on App Event. It will activate your workflow if someone will do certain action in selected app. Here is whole bunch of different popular applications already integrated with N8N. If you click on one of them, you'll see the list of available actions you can trace and use as trigger for your workflow. You can make your workflow start every day, month, every 2 hours, etc. with scheduled trigger node. If a service you want to interact with is not included in the list of integrated applications and doesn't have a dedicated N8N trigger node, you can use a webhook to initiate a workflow based on data from that service. You can create form, similar to Google Forms, and if someone will fill out your form and submit it, the workflow will be activated. Other workflows can activate your workflow too. Users can activate it by sending some message to the chat. This trigger node should be used with AI nodes. You can run some dataset through your workflow to test its performance. And there are some other ways. Here are Email Trigger, Error Trigger that can start your workflow when some other workflow has an error. MCP Server Trigger. You can not only activate your workflow with some events in external apps, but you can trigger it with some actions inside N8N. The SSE trigger node is used to receive automatic updates from a server using HTTP connection. Okay, I'll select Manual Trigger again. Once you added node to the canvas, you can execute it to check if it works. As you can see, this node executed successfully. After adding trigger node, you should connect it to the next node. This time, the list of the nodes looks different. First of all, here are lots of AI options. There are some ready-to-use templates. And here is AI Agent node. By clicking on this option, you'll see the different settings of this node, and as you can see, Chat Trigger node was added automatically because we should have possibility to talk to the AI agent and set tasks for it. Now this workflow has 2 trigger nodes. Here is placeholder for large language model like ChatGPT, Mistral, Gemini, etc. The model you choose will be the brain of this AI agent. Also, the agent should have some memory to remember previous actions and context, and agent should have access to some external apps. Okay, I'll delete Agent node. You can use different AI options from OpenAI. There are OpenAI Assistant actions, text, image, audio, and file actions. There's a whole bunch of other useful AI features. For example, sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis, also known as opinion mining, is the process of computationally identifying and categorizing the emotional tone expressed in text. Like in case with AI agent, you have to connect some large language model, which will actually do the analysis. And you can define the next steps depending on the result. Of course, the next step after initiating your workflow can be action in any application from this list. The next group of nodes is data transformation. You can see that the most popular option is AA Transform. Then you can also use JavaScript or Python in Code node. You can edit date and time values. Edit the fields of the tables with your data. You can add or remove items from your dataset if they match some conditions. There are also combine options. You can make data conversion by compressing and decompressing files, convert JSON into binary data, encrypt the information, edit images, and more. The next group of nodes is called Flow. Here you can find things common for any programming language. For example, if node allows you to perform some actions if some condition is true and define what to do in all other cases. Loop node can do the same action iteratively with each element in some range. You can compare datasets, which can be useful if you need to detect some changes in new version of the dataset, for example. You can initiate another workflow from current workflow. You can make your workflow stop and throw error message in some conditions. Switch node is the same as if node, but for cases when there are few different possible cases and you want to define actions for each of them. And you can just pause the execution of the workflow. In the core section, you can find nodes you already saw in other sections, but there are also HTTP request, FTP node, etc. And the last section is human in the loop. Here are nodes which allow you to get emails or messages in one of these apps to get notified with the results of the workflow execution, for example. Here, you can add another trigger node. Nice! Now you have basic understanding of different types of N8N nodes. So let's create some simple automation. For example, I want to create form. Then, information entered by user in that form should be added to Google Sheet document. And after this, I want to get email, which will notify me that someone added some information to the spreadsheet. So first, I have to add the form node to the canvas. It will be the trigger node for this workflow. Here you can see test and production URL. You can share the production URL, so other people will be able to fill out and submit your form. Then you should decide if anyone who has linked to your form can use it, or you can enable authentication, so only people who know the username and password set by you will be able to access your form. Here you can set this password and username. Your form should have a name. Form description is not required. Form should have some fields where users can enter some information, choose answers from the list, or upload files. After adding an element, you can select its type. You can create custom element from scratch using HTML. HTML is the language used to create websites, but in most cases, you won't need this option. You can add field where users can set date. Here's drop-down list, email. In the settings of the file element, you can define file types you want to accept. Hidden field won't be visible for the users. This field can be used to add some label to your form. And there are number field where user can insert numbers only. Password field will hide all the entered characters, and text, of course. Text area is resizable for the user and often allows you to enter longer text. You have to add a name to all the fields, so the user will understand the purpose of each of them. Placeholder is just some default text that will be displayed until you enter yours. It's not required. Now user can submit this form with empty text field, but if I make this field required, the form will be submitted only if user will enter at least one character. Of course, you can add as many fields to your form as you want, and I'll keep this first option selected to respond when form is submitted because the next nodes will use the data entered by user in the form. There are also additional options, but first I want to test my form to be sure that everything works properly. Form will be opened in separate window. Here is how it looks. Okay, some random text. My form is submitted. In the output, you can see the text I entered. I can pin this output so N8N will remember it, and I'll be able to use this output as input in the next nodes when testing my workflow. You can see that the information can be displayed in 3 different ways. Now it's in table format. There's also scheme. On the left side, you can see name and type of each element. And JSON is list of elements with key and value. It's partially similar to schema. The next element in my workflow will be Google Sheets node. I'll use search option here. Okay, here's it. I want to add new row to an existing spreadsheet, so I'll use append row in sheet option. Left sidebar is input section. Here, you can see the output I got after I submitted form. N8N should have access to the document to be able to edit it. You should create new credential to grant access to your Google Sheets. Here, you can just sign into your Google account, so N8N will be able to create, edit, delete, etc. your Google Sheets. Resource will be sheet within document. If your document didn't appear in the list, you can copy link or ID of the document. Here's my spreadsheet with a single column, text. I'll copy link of this document. I'll choose from URL option and paste my link here. It loaded the list of the sheets in my document. As soon as it has only one sheet, I can select only sheet 1. In the values to send, you can see the text column. So what I need to do is to write all the text inputs from each form, submission into new row in the text column in Google Spreadsheet. If I'll type in some text here in this field, the same entered text will appear in the each new row in my spreadsheet after form submission. So this will be fixed value. But if I just drag this text field variable from the form output and drop it here, this text column field will become dynamic and it will depend on user's input in the form. Okay, let's test it out. And it's ready to use. So now we have form and Google Sheet nodes. And I need to send notification on my email when the Google Sheet is updated. I'll type in Gmail in the search bar. Here's Gmail node. I need to send email, so I'll choose corresponding option. Here, I should do the same thing I did with the Google Sheet node to connect it to my Google account. I already connected one Gmail account here, but I want to connect another one. Now I define the account which will send the messages. In credentials, you can see 2 accounts right now. Here, I'll specify the receiver of the message. Subject will be form submission, for example, and the message. I don't want to get the same message all the time. I want to add the text entered by user into my message. So I changed field type to expression, so it will be different depending on the user's input. But there's no data in the input sidebar because there are no rows in my spreadsheet. So I went back to my form submission node and tried to execute workflow. But there's a problem with Gmail node because N8N doesn't have access to my Gmail account. So I have to see what's wrong this time. The problem is that when I added new credentials, I selected old account which is not available. So I selected new one, and the problem was fixed. Now it works properly. Here will be some random text. Okay, form is submitted. I pinned this output so I can use it as input in the next nodes. And then I'll execute workflow. So the text I entered in the form will be added to the spreadsheet. I connected spreadsheet node to Gmail, and now I can drag text field from the Google Sheet node and drop it in the message area. But I don't want to get just text entered by user. So I'll add explanation that will be the same for all messages. So there's fixed part of the message and dynamic field which will contain the user input. Okay, I'll unpin the form output because I don't need to use it anymore. Now my workflow is inactive. All executions of this workflow were test executions. You can activate it so it will start working in regular mode. In my case, after activating it, I should also share the production URL of the form with somebody. And finally, I want to run full workflow. I submitted the form and 2 other nodes worked successfully. Now let's see my Google Sheet. Here are 2 rows with text. I typed in the text field of the form, and I got this message on my Gmail. You can see that everything worked properly. Here's fixed part of the message before colon character, and here's my text. This was pretty simple example. What about AI agents? The most common way to start AI agent workflow is chat node. It's easiest way to interact with the agent and the agent node. I'll change some adjustments of this node later. Now I want to add large language model which will be the brain of the agent. There are different options. Of course, ChatGPT is the most popular one, but you should pay at least $5 to be able to use it here. So I'll add Google's Gemini. It's free to use, and probably you won't see significant differences between these 2 models if you will use them for some simple tasks. Like in cases with other external tools, you should create new credential to connect it to N8N. You should get API key and paste it here. I'll go to aistudio.google.com/app/API key. Here you can create and manage your Gemini API keys. If you scroll down, you can see already existing keys. I'll create new one. First, you should select Google Cloud Project, and then you'll be able to get API key. Here's it. Now I can copy and paste it to the corresponding field in the credential section. API is Application Programming Interface, which allows different services to interact and exchange data. Developers of any application can define set of different actions their app can do after request from other program. After getting API key N8N, we'll be able to make requests to the Gemini, and Gemini will return some responses back to N8N. There are lots of different versions of Gemini, older and new ones. I'll choose something new, for example, version 2.5 Flash. Okay, LLM is ready. Now let's add some memory so the agent will remember previous actions and context. There are some external tools, but this simple internal N8N memory will be enough. And of course, our agent should have access to some tools. For example, I want to add Google Calendar. I should connect it to N8N. I'll create new credential here. Okay, account is connected. Operation will be create because I want to create new event in my Google Calendar. Here I can choose calendar I want to interact with. Here are 2 fields which define the starting and ending time of the event I want to be created. By default, you can see JavaScript function now, which shows current date and time. But I want to make this system more flexible. I want to make the AI find the information about duration of the event from my message. So instead of now function, I'm going to use from AI function with key value and description. It will be start time, and the description is to make I understand what it means, and the same for the end field, but there will be end time. Word start in the description will be replaced with end, and I'll add another field. It will be summary. It will update the title of the event. I'll paste the same from AI function here. Okay, Google Calendar node is ready. And the last thing I should do to get my agent ready to use is to specify what is current date and time, because by default models don't know this. I can do this by editing the system message, which is used for providing some context to the large language model. Here's default message. I won't remove it. I'll change its type to expression, which means I can now add dynamic fields to the text. So I'll type in current date is, and I'll use JavaScript function now. Here you can already see current date and time. So finally, my AI agent is ready to use. You can open chat here or here. I'll just type in hello to see if it works. It worked successfully, and here's the answer from Gemini. Now I wanted to create picnic event for tomorrow for 3 p.m. for 2 hours. After waiting for a few seconds, we can see the response from Gemini. The event has been created for July 1st from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Let's check my calendar. Today is June 30th, and here is my picnic event. It corresponds my request, as you can see. So the AI agent understands that current date is June 30th, so tomorrow should be July 1st. And if the event starts at 3 p.m. and its duration is 2 hours, it should end at 5 p.m. This was another pretty simple example. AI agent can have access to multiple tools. Of course, can start another workflow, or agent itself can be started from another workflow. There are lots of possibilities. That's all for today. I hope this video helped you to understand the basics of this service.